Welcome to another episode of Red and Black, where your conservatism is not just the color that you're used to. I'm Lenny McAllister, and I'm particularly excited because we have a big announcement from a California conservative that's a media personality that is announcing their run for California governor. And without any further ado, it's not Kira Davis. Hi, Kira.
No, it's not me. I'm sorry to say. We're definitely going to talk about this, though. The race is on here in California, and a lot of people are excited about where things are going, and some not so much. But we'll talk about that later. I will tell you guys that as we record, I am under threat of fire. There are wildfires bearing down on my community right now. There's smoke and ash in the air. So I've got my phone on to get any alerts for evacuation. I'm not really worried about our safety, more just worried about the inconvenience of having to evacuate. So yeah, if I just get up and take off in the middle of this show today, you'll know I'm just running for my life. Don't worry about it.
Usually it's because she's pissed off with me, but this week it's because of fire. So we're going to clarify. Jeff, you're from California, but you live in Texas now. Might you be running for governor, maybe, please?
Well, you know what? I might actually have a shot with how people feel about Greg Abbott right now. So maybe I'll consider it.
You're trying to get your buddy Alan West all up in a tizzy up. Don't do that. We don't need two black conservatives running for governor against an incumbent. You would at least need a motorcycle.
Well, at least one of us wouldn't be gripping. I'm just kidding. I'm not ready to call Alan West a grifter yet. I'm just a little bit, kind of leery of that whole thing. I'm like, what's going on here?
You do realize that it's really hard to put down the G word on the table and pick it back up. It's kind of like the big joker in spades. Once it's down, it's down. You set the mood. You set the tone. Just letting you know, if you're Trump tight, no pun intended, by the way, everybody. If you're Trump tight, you let it ride. Okay?
Well, we are talking about another black conservative who's running for governor that I will say is definitely grifting, but I'll wait until we get to that.
We haven't even gotten 3 minutes into the show and you throw the G word out there twice. Dr. Metzler, the red and black official G word connoisseur, to make sure that we actually use that word appropriately. Can you save me from the Californian and the native Californian, both of which are not running for governor right now, please?
Well, so here's the thing. I do have to do a shout out to Jeff because speaking of grifting, there is a certain grifter who apparently is researching why West Indian blacks do so well, because she claims since she's from the Virgin Islands, she has research. And that would be, hey, Candy. So I do have
go ahead.
For bringing that to all of our.
I started this show excited about a gubernatorial announcement. You all have made me feel really bad about gubernatorial announcements and proclamations on all this other stuff. And you've thrown out the G word now 3 times. And we've been 5 minutes into the show and we're not even through the intro yet. So I don't know if this is going to be very entertaining or very depressing. It might be entertaining until we go through a couple of digresses, and then it's
going to be griftastic.
Yeah, Kira's not amused.
I'm just vacillating between these terrible dad jokes and fire alerts.
Yeah, and with that, we're gonna get. It sounds like a bad joke. What do you get when you get 3 dads and a smart conservative on the line? You get me getting rid of 2 of the dads and asking Kira a question. So we're gonna go to you first, Kira, because you're the one that's not only under a fire threat, but you're also under threat of possibly having a new governor if this recall goes through. And this governor is well known nationally, and there's implications to that. So I want to hear how you feel about a possible Governor Larry Elder.
Listen, I'm fine with it. I know Larry is not my guy. I had heard rumors that he was going to throw his hat in the ring, and I was a bit disappointed because there's a really great candidate here. His name is Kevin Kiley. He has been fighting Newsom's abuse of draconian orders all year long. He took Newsom to court and won to restore our religious freedoms. He's been the lone voice on the assembly floor in Sacramento fighting against this AB 5 bill, which killed the gig economy here, and is now sitting in the Senate waiting to creep up on the rest of America. And so he has just been a fighter, and so much so that in this fight we had against AB 5 earlier, I guess we're almost 2 years in now. That's a movement that is filled with Democrats because it was mostly Democrat creatives that were fighting it. And he really earned the respect of Democrat voters. And I've never seen anything like it. In fact, as we speak, there are 20,000 freelancers right now organizing for Kevin Kiley because he really kind of threw off that Republican stench that a lot of Democrat voters feel like they don't want to vote for. That being said, I don't have as strong feelings about Larry Elder as I think the rest of my team here on Red and Black do. A lot of people are excited about him. I know a lot of my friends are excited about him because he's a name that they recognize and they like him. I don't think he would be a better candidate than Kevin Kiley. I think a lot of people are just excited about him because he's a conservative pundit. But to be honest, we could put a fried hot dog in the governor's mansion in Sacramento, and he's going to do better than Gavin Newsom. The other thing that I really need people to understand here, and this is really important, and tell all your friends, it actually really doesn't matter. I mean, it matters as far as you want to like the guy that's in office, right? But there's only 2 questions on the recall. First question is, do you want to recall Governor Newsom from the office of governor of the state of California? Yes or no? Majority yeses, he gets recalled. Doesn't matter. He's not running against anybody. He's running against himself. So if you get a majority of yes votes on that first question, he's gone. Doesn't matter who's replacing him, he's gone. Second question is a list of candidates. And then you say, okay, if you want to recall Governor Newsom, of these people, who do you think would be best to replace him? So it's only 2 questions, and you don't need to have an answer for the second question to answer the first question. So in that regards, we're in good shape. You know, it doesn't really matter if Larry Elder is kind of splitting what I feel is splitting the vote on some really good, strong conservative proven candidate. It annoys me, but at the same time, Governor Larry Elder, I wouldn't hate it. You know, it would be worse. It would be certainly couldn't be worse than Newsom. The important thing is that the answer to question number 1 is yes. Everything else is gravy.
So I'm going to go to you next, Jeff, and then I'm going to go to you, Dr. Metzler, because you have a deeper history with Larry Elder as a pundit, as a conservative analyst and media personality. Jeff, I want to go to you as somebody that obviously is a pundit and a political personality, but also somebody that grew up in California, understands the dynamics of all the different communities in this vast state coming together. And then, of course, the recall process, which, you know, most states don't have this dynamic, where California seems to have it once every 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so with that said, what do you think about all this? 1, Elder, 2, where the recall is going, because before you know it, it's going to be right here on our doorstep.
Yeah. So with Larry Elder, I am going to start out positive so that guys don't think of that I'm just hating. Larry Elder is a very, very intelligent man. He's very intelligent. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, but there are times where he's made some very excellent points. I think he articulates himself very clearly. I think that he knows his stuff. That's what I will say for Larry Elder. Now, here's the thing, like Kevin Kiley. Kira just brought him up. So just from this, I know that Kevin Kiley is going to protect religious freedom. He's not down with all these lockdown orders. He's challenged Gavin Newsom on key issues. What is Larry Elder's platform? Because right now I can tell you a little bit about Kevin Kiley's platform. I haven't found it online. I even just looked. This nigga even got a website for Larry for governor. And I know he just announced, but you normally would have that stuff set up. So the reason I'm saying this is this really a serious thing? I mean, we live in an age where a lot of people on the right will run for office just for clout. I'm not saying for sure that Larry Elder is doing this, just like I'm not saying for sure that Alan West is doing it, but it's coming off that way a little bit. And if somebody were to think that, I couldn't blame them. So, I mean, if I were in California, would I vote for Larry Elder over Newsom? Hell yeah, easily. I wouldn't even have to think about it. I can disagree with other stuff that he says and know that he'll at least, he has conservative principles, at least for the most part, from what I've seen. But when it comes to the recall, I mean, this is one of the things that California got right. Every state should have a mechanism by which you can kick a governor out of office if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, or if they're not respecting the Constitution, or if they're not respecting rights. And it's interesting to see. I mean, because I was in California when they recalled Gray Davis, and I thought it was great. I mean, because he was horrible. And in this case, we have another situation with a more charismatic version of Gray Davis, I'll say, because Newsom does have more charisma. But I don't know how it's going to work out, because I'm not as tapped into California as I used to be. But from what I'm seeing and from what I've heard Kira say, there is a lot of support for removing him. And I'm suspecting that a lot of that support is coming from people on the left, just like here in Austin, when they wanted to put the homeless camping ban back in. That wasn't just conservatives. That was people on the left too. So yeah, a lot of people on the left are crazy, but not all of them. A lot of them are sensible when it comes to other issues. So I think there is a good chance that this could happen.
And Dr. M, let me pivot a little bit, because I'm going to take one of the things that Jeff brought up, but then I'm going to also ask you the deeper questions, like I said I was going to. Jeff said, you know what, hey, does he really have a real platform? Shouldn't he be, putting out a website, this, that, and the other? Dr. M, does he need to? I mean, my initial thought when Jeff said that was, yeah, he has a platform. It's been out there for over 20 years on the radio. It's been on television for 20 years. He has probably more of a public record than anybody else in the race, maybe including Newsom, because whereas Newsom has stuff that's legislation and the like, you have Larry Elder that's been able to speak on anything from culture to policy with a platform and be unadulterated, and has been able to do this for 2 to 3 decades. So does he really need to do some of the things that normal candidates do? And from there, what does it look like for him as a pundit making the transition to a gubernatorial candidate? Listen, it's not far-fetched. We've now seen somebody become a president this way, but we've seen congressmen, we've seen mayors, we've seen senators, we've seen governors get elected this way.
Well, a couple of things. I mean, first of all, as it relates to Larry, look, Larry's an excellent pundit. He is very smart. Get the point across. However, from a policy standpoint, if I am not sure how he is going to implement whatever those ideas are, number one. Number two, I do think even if he's been out there as long as he's been out there, he still does need to put up a website and do all of those kinds of things. I don't, I see Larry and respect Larry as a pundit, as a commentator, as an analyst, as a governor, not so much. I don't see it. I don't see what he's going to bring and how he's going to govern. That's the biggest concern for me. And so I it doesn't seem to me that it's a serious campaign from that perspective.
Well, I'm going to ask you this, and then I'm going to Kira for just a second. He's not trying to run a traditional campaign. Again, if he were running and this race was going to be 2 years long, 3 years long, then maybe some of the things that you're saying makes all the sense in the world. Because yes, you got to build up momentum, you got to do things, you got to look like a candidate, etc. But if you think about it, this is a guerrilla campaign. He doesn't have to do this for even a full year. 6 months? He already had, if he gets the first answer the way he wants it, then it's basically a guerrilla race. So does he really need to do some of those things that a normal candidate needs to do? In many instances, maybe he can't look just the way he's used to looking, be himself. And when a plurality to get across the finish line. I'm going to start with you, Dr. M, on that, and then I'll go back to Kira.
Well, perhaps he can do that. And from the standpoint of not wanting to be a traditional candidate, I get that. I understand that completely. However, as it relates to Larry, and as it relates to a lot of his messaging, he's not terribly disciplined relative to that. It's kind of all over the place. So we're not quite sure exactly, I think as Jeff said earlier, so what exactly what's your platform to address the issues that are plaguing California at this time? I think he's got to be coherent. I get that it's, this is not the traditional race. However, I am as enthusiastic about Larry Elder as I am about Major Williams.
We started the show with shade. We continue the show with shade. It's the summer of shade here on Red and Black. Kira, you're there. You're watching this. The horse that you have in the race is not Larry Elder. So you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, look, we got a good candidate. Why are you doing this? But people said that about Trump, and people kind of gravitated towards an image and the promise of something based on who somebody was from an image standpoint.
Okay.
Substance. Now, again, I know Trump can only do things that only Trump can do. So I'm not going to say Larry Elder is going to be the Trump, because we have seen 4 years of people trying that and it just doesn't work for anybody else. But with that said, I mean, is the feel in California that Larry Elder can, using his big, megaphone that he's had for years and his national platform, raise money quick, or just doesn't need to raise money quick because he has his name, be able to elbow people out of the race?
It's both. So he's an attractive candidate for the GOP to support, right? Because he already has mega name recognition. And what he's going to do is he's going to pull dollars from outside of the state. Inside of the state, I'm not sure how many Democrats even know who Larry Elder is. And that's who you're courting too. You're not courting conservative voters. Conservative voters are voting against Newsom. What can happen is he could maybe energize the conservative base that maybe wasn't playing. Like a lot of us are disheartened. So a lot of conservatives, there's actually a huge conservative vote here in California that doesn't get activated because people have just given up. Yeah. So it could be that his name activates those people. It could be that he brings in a lot of outside dollars, which is definitely something that's going to happen. He's got Dave Rubin campaigning for him as well. He's got some big names, and he's going to get the Fox places now. He's going to have to give up his radio show to run because that's against campaign finance rules. So he's not going to have the same platform that he's had for the last 60 days. But when I look at Larry, and I have to say that, when I first started in this business, Larry's show was the first show I ever went on. He was the first radio show I ever did, and really launched myself as a pundit. So like a lot of people, I love Larry. Like, I love listening to him. Like Chris said, he's a great pundit. But I'm looking around at what we've been through in the last 2 years, and it's been hell with AB5, and we have this transgender school bill that parents have been fighting tooth and nail. And I'm thinking, where's Larry been? He hasn't said anything. He's never had me on his show to talk about AB5. He's never, he's not been nowhere. We could have used his voice in that fight, and he's been nowhere. I don't know even how much time Larry has been spending inside this state for the last 2 years. So while, again, I want to say that I enjoy listening to Larry and I enjoy reading his stuff, as a California voter, forget as a pundit or anything, as a California voter, I'm left wondering, what has he done for us? When I'm looking at this other guy who has just been fighting tooth and nail, he's been the lone voice on the floor of the assembly, yet he never gives up. He has earned the votes of Democrats who swore they would never vote Republican. And that's who we need to get out, is the Democrats. Now, here's a way that Larry could get this. If Democrats just don't come to the polls, and that's actually a possibility, because typically recall elections or special elections tip conservative or Republican, because Democrats tend to only vote in major election cycles, right? In presidential election cycles. And they don't like to come out for recall elections. And most of Democrats, even though they're upset with Newsom and upset with the way things are being run, I think probably what's going to happen is not that we're going to see them come out to vote and vote to keep Newsom. They're just not going to come out. And so then if they don't come out and then a lot of conservatives come out, then you might get a Larry Elder. But if the Democrats who have been pissed off for the last year about what's happened to their livelihoods and careers do decide to come out, they're coming out for Kylie 100%, because that's the guy they know. I don't know if even a lot of Democrats would even recognize Larry Elder's name. I really don't. I think that's a conservative name. It excites us. And a lot of conservatives are wanting to get on board with him because he's a Black conservative. And I'm just thinking, like, if I'm Newsom and I'm thinking that Larry's a threat, I just start releasing some oppo on him and Trump and Candace. Let that, run across the California airways. That's definitely going to turn off Democrat voters.
Well, and let me just add a couple things here. Number one, Kara's absolutely right as it relates to the whole Democratic piece, because it is Democratic voters who you're targeting. What Democrats know about Larry is very negative. Nothing positive from their perspective with Larry Elder. It just is not. And I don't think that in this case, the Democrats are going to stay home. And here's why I don't think that. Nancy and all of those folks do not want to lose this particular seat. They just don't want to be able to do it. So as a result of that, I think for Democrats, the name Larry Elder is not, if they even know who he is not a positive. So I just don't see how that works. It doesn't make sense from a strategic standpoint.
All right, so let me ask the question, and Jeff, you first, and Dr. Metzler. Well, let me throw it out to all three of you. So everybody's leaning. Jeff, you threw out the G word first, so I'm going to pick on you. If it's leaning towards a grifting move, that it's more of a grifting move than a guerrilla campaign type of activity, what would convince you, other than a little bit more wine from Dr. Metzler, that this is a real campaign by him, that maybe he can be himself and really run for governor? I mean, when people saw Schwarzenegger run, they were like, yeah, and so was Gary Coleman. May his soul rest in peace. People kind of did that. They're like, well, what do you mean Arnold's actually climbing up the polls? What do you mean he won? So, I mean, what would help Larry Elder make that transition if he's really doing this for something other than watch me get a whole lot of buzz to try to jump my name to the next level over the course of the next 6 months?
He would need to show that he's actually invested in this. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, I came into this not knowing much about Kevin Kiley. After hearing what Kara Davis said about him, that man is invested in California. He is invested. He is fighting for that state, just like she said. But where was Larry Elder? I mean, is he actually invested in this? And the thing is that we've seen, like I said before, we see a lot of people running just for clout. And some of those people won, by the way, in Congress. But yeah, I mean, we are seeing a lot of, and it's not just Black conservatives. I mean, it's a lot Black conservatives, but it's also white conservatives, Hispanic. I've seen it run the gamut. And if they don't, the way I judge it, like say, if I'm thinking about interviewing a candidate or talking to them or supporting them, I go, what does the website look like? Not as far as design goes, but what does it have on it? Is there policy on there? It doesn't have to be deep into policy, doesn't have to be the nuts and bolts, but an idea of what policies you will support, say, when you get to Congress or when you get to the governor's mansion or the mayor's house or what have you. I look for those things. So when I look for that with Larry Elder, who knows better because he's been in politics for decades, and I don't see any of that. I mean, I see some interviews about it, but that just makes me think this is all that serious.
Op-ed. It reads like an op-ed.
But that's an interesting point. You know, you said he's been in politics for years, but you all three have been making the point that actually he's been in media for years. He's not really been in politics.
Right.
And what I guess the question that I'm asking, and you kind of answered it, Jeff, and I think Dr. M, you answered the same thing. And Kara, I'm thinking that you're going to agree, which is, dude is not really making the transition to politics. And because he's not Trump, and because he's not running against 16 people, which honestly, let's remember with Trump ran against 16 people that held elected office before, so he stuck out like a sore thumb. When you do a recall election in California, you get a little bit of everybody running for governor, so you don't stick out like a sore thumb. Governor. Yeah, so maybe he could try to convince people, but it doesn't seem like he's going to have a very easy time doing so, especially in a short period of time, no less. It's a condensed period of time he has to work with.
Well, yeah, and also he is no Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's that's a whole celebrity piece, a whole that's a whole different thing relative to Arnold. So I wouldn't even make that comparison. Look, at the end of the day, for me, there is nothing that's going to convince me in this very short period of time that he is invested in California. He's not. As a matter of fact, I always thought when they said that, I had to go back and say, oh, yeah, he lives in California. Because that's not the scene that I see him most on. And I think, as Kara said, this is about the life of Californians and who is fighting for them. Larry's not done that. He has not done that. He's been doing other things, which he's very good at doing. I just don't think this will be a success.
I have to say, Lenny, you might be interested to know this, that there actually is a debate scheduled between Kevin Kiley and Larry Elder next week. So... yeah, and they're using it as a fundraiser, and I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea because at the end of the day, like I told you guys, question number 1 is the most important question. Now, when you see all the ne'er-do-wells and all the negative Nellies on Twitter going, Gavin can't lose, those are people who don't understand how the recall works. They think Gavin is running against another candidate. He's not.
No.
The first question is a yes or no question. That is it. So the good thing about Larry getting in this race, I suppose, is the publicity that it's going to bring to question number 1, which is what we want people to understand. That question number 1 is the most important question to answer. Question 2 is the second most important. But I cannot stress enough, as a voter, I'm not saying anything bad about Larry. Like, I know there's a lot of conservatives who are really excited that he's in this race. And I'm not trying to create another situation where we fall out over like a guy like Trump or something. There's room for all of this in this race. We don't all have to coalesce behind one candidate. But I look at a guy like Kevin Kiley, who's been fighting tooth and nail, and I think, gosh, wouldn't Larry's voice be great to support that guy? Wouldn't Larry's voice be great behind that guy, getting those out-of-state dollars for this guy? But again, I have been in this fight, scraping, going on every media program that would take me, every stupid little podcast or stupid big podcast, every radio show, anybody who would talk to me about AB5, I was there. Larry never reached out to any of us to talk about that. And that's the biggest thing. That's a lot of people think that the recall started at the French Laundry. It didn't. It started with AB5. French Laundry just amplified it. But AB5, Democrats were already on board for this recall and angry because they lost their jobs and livelihoods because of this bill. So I don't see that from Larry. I do see this as just a move for clout. I really do. I don't, maybe he'll prove me wrong, but if I'm a voter and I'm looking at who's going to fight for me, the biggest thing on my mind is, will this governor do what he can to repeal AB5? And Larry does not have a breath, a whisper, a word about AB5 on his website. I'm not even sure he knows what it is. Well, it is really the biggest issue next to COVID in the state.
I'm going to say that if he's watching Red and Black this week, he'll have something to say after this. Thank you, Kira Davis. And it's interesting. I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to go over to Jeff because I got to talk to him about his girlfriend. One of the things about Arnold Schwarzenegger that people forget that Larry Elder does not have in his corner, and Chris, you hit on it without hitting on it. 1, Arnold had a bigger celebrity name. Number 2, who was he married to?
Exactly.
Kennedy.
Yeah, there you go.
Big difference. Now, thank you for being smart, because that's your role on this show, or else we really would be in trouble. But I'm going to let you go. Now, I got to let you go, too, because you're wonderful and gorgeous and intelligent, but you got a fire to keep an eye on. What's up with your girlfriend, man? I mean, every time we have a show, there's literally something going on where she says something where we shake our head and, you know, it's almost like the Obama revenge. Let's just be honest, because, and I'm going to say this with everybody on the screen. Everybody saw the memes of Barack Obama with his head down and Joe Biden in the meme saying something stupid, right? What's the Obama revenge to Joe Biden? To give Joe Biden a vice president that puts him through the same thing. So this week, we end up having the vice president saying that Texas Democrats leaving the state to avoid a quorum to vote on civil rights legislation, or voting rights, I should say, voting rights legislation coming through in Texas, which some are seeing as civil rights legislation back and forth, as being akin to Frederick Douglass fighting for women's voting rights. I don't even know how that tie all got together. I mean, there's a common tie of voting, but that's it. But Frederick Douglass? Really, Jeff? I'm going to ask you to explain this because I have nothing.
Well, I've got something for you. I've been writing about this. See, here's the thing. This is just more proof positive that the Democrats do not respect Black people. Not only do they not care about us, they don't even respect us. They are willing to take our icons and exploit them in a very cynical way to promote their agenda. Kamala Harris is just the latest to do this. I mean, they've been calling these voting laws Jim Crow 2.0. Like, here's the thing. They can disagree with the voting laws, but conjuring images of Jim Crow, people being hosed down and being bitten by dogs in the civil rights movement, conjuring what we call Black trauma to in a manipulative way to push their agenda, shows that they don't respect Black people. These Texas Democrats, who are, I guess, Frederick Douglass now, they fled to the Capitol and they went and what did they do? They sang what song? They sang "We Shall Overcome," which was a song that the civil rights activists would march to. One of the songs. It would be sung at speeches. I sang it when I was a kid, and they sang that song. And even worse, they didn't even sing it well. They butchered it alive. It was horrible. You could hear dogs in the background like when they're singing the song. It was that bad. So not only are they using Jim Crow as a political weapon, not only are they using "We Shall Overcome" as a political weapon, not only are they singing it badly, now we've got Kamala Harris out there making slave references. Like this is hearkening back to slavery, and these people are rescuing Black people and safeguarding their right to vote. Because even though we can't actually give any piece of evidence whatsoever that any of these laws would disproportionately impact Black people, we need these symbols to push this agenda. And yeah, I do mean they don't provide any evidence. I've read through it all the op-eds. All they do is just repeat over and over again, this will keep Black people from voting. They don't say how, they don't say why, they don't say where it's gonna happen, because they're lying their asses off and they know it. That's why they have to conjure these images, because they want to play on people's emotions. And by the way, they're not playing on Black people's emotions, because Black people, even if they disagree with these laws, even if they believe some of what the Democrats are saying, they know this ain't Jim Crow. They know this isn't slavery. They are trying to appeal to white progressives, as they usually do, tugging on their heartstrings, playing on that white guilt, so that they will come out and support this crap. So that's what's going on here. That's to answer. That is the answer to your question,
Dr. Metzler. What I want to ask is, number one, was Kamala Harris really that important for Joe Biden to win the election in 2020? Because every time you turn around, she's stepping in some type of gaffe, to the point now, and I've heard this in other media reports, where this is not just Republicans going after her when she does this. There are now Democrats licking their chops to go after her, to weaken her, so that if Biden doesn't run for another term, she can't run either. And so now she got both political parties and people that are taking advantage of these situations coming after her. Why, one, does she continue to do this? Number two, do you think the Biden administration, or I should say the president and his office, are looking at this saying, is she really worth it? And number three, how much damage is she starting to do to the Biden administration by continuing to have these type of episodes that are not playing out well in the media?
Well, a couple of things. The first thing that I would say, relative to the comment today was, so did Frederick Douglass fly maskless on a private plane to help the slaves? I just want to know that, because with the Democrats, that's in fact what occurred. Flying from Texas, maskless, even though we are supposed to be wearing masks on commercial airlines, and they flew, by the way, on a private jet. So that's number one. Number two, as it relates to Harris, there are a couple of, well, many problems. I don't know if you saw the photograph where she and the German chancellor were cackling at the German embassy today. The best part of that photo, they're cackling in front of a picture of Trump. So there you have. So there was that portion of it. The picture in the picture was worth $1 million at least. But as it relates to her, she is incompetent. She's been incompetent from the beginning. The president said he wanted to select a Black female. And so he felt he needed to do that. They thought she was the path of least resistance. It is very clear to me that she has no grasp on any of these issues. She has a terrible staff, which is continuously undermining her and leaking stuff to the press, which is why she lost when she was running for president. I believe that, in fact, they are regretting this decision. And I don't know that, I think that she is, if she continues this, she's going to ruin her chances. Her chances are already ruined. It's over for her because she just doesn't have the capability to do that. So from my perspective, it is a complete and total disaster. I believe the Biden administration is like, what have we done? But at this point, what are they going to do? But I do believe that Democrats are, in fact, weakening her and making sure that she fails, because look, I don't care what Republican runs in 2024. If she is the Democratic nominee, it will be of Walter Mondale. I don't know if she'll win Minnesota. She might win. I don't know.
No, Kira, I think he's right. I mean, look, she was supposed to project something different. I mean, she can do the personable thing right now on Ellen, but she's also was supposed to bring a level of energy and competency, because you're an old guy at the top. Well, I mean, if you think about how you're constructing
they had her.
Pardon me?
Is that why you think that they nominated her? She had an energy. She was personable.
Okay, compare her to Joe Biden, and you're putting together a presidential ticket. Then yeah, I mean, Val Demings was a stronger candidate, had a no nonsense perspective on crime, which is now would have been gold right now, but at the time wasn't going to play well, and she was not going to be a pushover. Like Chris said, Kamala Harris was going to be, at the time, Senator Harris was the path of least resistance. So if you look at how that ticket was constructed, you got the old steady guy that lost his fastball. I keep using that analogy, but at least you have the mid-50s, person of color from California that was going to be the person that was going to be good in the media, higher energy, all that other jazz. Well, she's not even doing that.
There's no way they thought she was going to be good in the media. We all sat here and watched her campaign tank the second she had longer than 20 seconds to talk. So no, I don't think they thought she'd be good in the media. I don't think they thought that she had good energy. I think that they thought and I think what they thought is actually smart. I believe that they believed she would be pliable, that she would be easy, because she's not that strong and she's actually not that intelligent. And they knew what they were getting with Biden, and they wanted the same thing in a younger person of color that they could boss around and tell what to do and put her here and put her there. They didn't count on her being this terrible because they thought that she was going to be shielded by her race. But that was an idiot thought because we all watched her campaign go down in flames. That wasn't an accident. It wasn't an accident that Democrat voters completely rejected her. Like 100% rejected her the second she had more than 20 seconds to speak. If you watch her on Ellen, if you watch her on The Breakfast Club, if you watch her with Charlemagne the God, she is not personable, and everybody comes away from those interactions with this confused look like this is not the woman that I thought I was going to get, because she actually has no substance, and she laughs inappropriately, and she can't pick up cultural references, which makes her laugh inappropriately again. And so no, she doesn't have any of the charm of an Obama, which maybe they hoped that she would have. I have no illusions that they thought she was going to be some kind of energetic force to combat Sleepy Joe. I think they thought that she was dumb enough to do what they said, and now they're worried that, because think about it, if you have 8 years of Joe Biden where he's just basically a puppet and anybody can tell him what to do, then you've trained this VP up, and now you get another 4 to 8 years of her, somebody who's got strings behind her and isn't really running the show. That would be a great win for the Democrats. Now looking at her, she's obviously going down. They have obviously decided to kick her to the curb because there's no way she wins anything in 2024. And they know this. The only way Kamala Harris gets to be president right now is if Joe Biden dies in office. And that's it. And I believe 100% that all of these leaks are Democrat leaks. When even Politico and HuffPo is running stories about the problematic Kamala Harris, she's got problems for sure. She's definitely not making it beyond this point in her career unless there's an untimely death.
Yeah, and
I want to add something just really quick. I don't think the issue was that they actually thought that she was going to bring energy and charisma. I think they wanted us to believe that she was going to bring energy and charisma, because if you think about it, they were the ones really hyping her up, calling her the female Obama. It was like trying to convince somebody to like a present that they just unwrapped and they hate it. Like that's what it was. Like, no, this is really good. It really good. I know it looks bad, but no, it's awesome. Like a used car salesman trying to get you to buy a hoopty for the price of a Porsche. Like they were really trying to sell this. So I think that it was more they were trying to manufacture that energy rather than them actually thinking that it was Kamala Harris.
I think it's interesting, real quick, that both, and I'll get to you, Dr. Metzler, in a second, that Jeff, over the course of a couple of shows, has both called Kamala Harris fine and also referred to her as like an analogy to a hoopty. I think it's pretty funny to me, but I digress.
Well, yeah, I think, for her, Democrats are now at the point where they're setting her up to fail. First of all, she accepted whatever they gave her from the very beginning. They gave her the B team, took the B team. It is the B team that is leaking to the media. I ain't calling no names about who doing it, but it is the team who is leaking to the media. She has run the office of the vice president no differently than she has when she was attorney general, no differently when she was on the campaign trail, which is backbiting, which incompetence, which is her sister and Michelle Fontroy, which is a toxic workplace. So they complain about a toxic workplace, and she hosts a party for them. And I'm sure at that party, one of the things she said is, "I'm speaking."
Is there any way, before we transition on, before we get to the end of the show, is there any way for her to salvage this? Because it seems as though there's been a high level of disappointment. And yeah, let's not forget that not only were they trying to make her out to be the female Obama, in fact, President Obama went to California and said that she was the best looking person running for Senate that year, which, by the way, made him really popular.
That was true.
That's why black women don't like him.
I was going to say, it also made her
came for Michelle.
Right.
Exactly. That's where I was going to go. It put her in a bad light from the outset. And then there was this, well, I'm African American, but I'm not really African American. But yeah, I'm a person of color, so I'm kind of African American. So you had that going on as well. And then but I'm from Howard. You never had her come across as being somebody that people can claim other than for a brief moment. And again, real quick around the horn, is it something where people claimed her in 2020 because they were going to reject Donald Trump? And less that point, let me bring up this point. People forget, and Kara, you talked about how black folks, they thought that her race was going to shield her. But Kara, I'll go to you first and the other two. People forget that black voters in 2020 were pissed off at everybody. They were pissed off at the Democrats. They were pissed off at Republicans. They didn't like Trump. I mean, Charlemagne the God came for Joe Biden and was like, that ain't funny. That you ain't black joke ain't funny around here no more. They came after everybody. So to take the same strategy from 1992 or 2008 and apply it to 2020 with Kamala Harris, Kara, to your point, just wasn't going to work per se.
No, well, this is, I think, the advantage that the GOP has is the Democrats are still playing with an old playbook. They haven't caught up yet. And so if the GOP can figure out, that they have overplayed their hands. I mean, honestly, you can tell that their polling, it's a disaster. They don't know what to do with the messaging. If Newsom is recalled here, it's just going to be a complete dumpster fire for the Democrat Party. They've overplayed their hand. I would like to point out that I have been saying since the beginning that we would regret letting Kamala be the first black vice president. She doesn't really count. And now the Democrats have wasted that title on a vice president who everybody hates now and is never going to be the president unless her boss dies in the next couple of years. Now we've wasted that. Now, what if we do get a really strong black woman in there like a Val Demings, She doesn't even get to have that title anymore. We wasted it on Kamala. I told you guys. I told you don't waste it on her. Just let her be Asian.
Did you see how Kara brought out the finger and said, I will remind you? That was pretty authoritarian. I like that. Jeff, real quick before I go to Dr. Metzler, before we free Britney.
I mean, Kira's right. I mean, they tried to do the Tiger Woods thing with Kamala Harris, and it didn't work. And, it's sad because everybody knows, including those who don't want to admit it, the only reason Kamala Harris is in that position that she's in is because of her race. And I don't even like having to say that because, I mean, it is true with her. I mean, because there's really nothing else there. I mean, in the beginning, it kind of seemed like, okay, maybe there's something there. But then as time went on, it became more apparent. And if there were other qualities about her, then I could say, oh, okay, yeah, she's got this going for her. She's got that going for her. I'm not saying like she's a dumb person. She's not. I mean, obviously, you have to be intelligent to have done what she's done. But this doesn't mean that she is of presidential caliber. So to me, I don't like saying it because I don't like the whole, oh, you're just an affirmative action hire, blah, blah. I mean, we get enough people saying that on the right, and they're usually full of it. But with Kamala Harris, it is true. And it's sad that they could have picked another black woman or an actual like fully black woman or what have you, who could have filled that position. Yeah. Who would have actually filled that role better, and it would have made more sense. I honestly don't know what they're thinking. But you know what? This reminds me of something that I was talking about on a podcast. The Democrats are being really stupid lately. Have you guys noticed that? Like over the past year or so, they've been making a lot of really, really stupid, dumb moves. This is one of them. The whole defund the police thing that is unpopular. They're pushing stuff that is unpopular, and they're trying to clean it up. And I can go on and on and on. But I was talking about this. It just came to me. I'm like, wow, they are being really stupid. Usually it's the Republicans who are the party of stupid. And I'm wondering what's going on here because I don't get it. I'm not saying that they're always brilliant. I'm just saying they're just usually not this stupid.
Chris,
I don't get it.
Chris, is it stupid or is it arrogant? And it's overplaying their hand, like Kira said, thinking that, oh, we're going to win anyway because the Republicans are the party of Trump and they're the basket of deplorables. So we can make a gap and it won't make a difference.
Well, I think it's both. And I do, in fact, think that there is a way that she can salvage her role. It's unlikely that she would do it. The way she her role, she can resign. That's the only way she can.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I wonder if we will see that.
But
that's a very interesting point of view.
That's the only way she can hold whatever credibility she has left, and the Democrats have any chance of having a credible candidate in 2024. This is a shit show. Very simple. This is what's going on here. And I and they're sitting around going around with all of this stuff. I'm like, are you awake? What are you doing? All of this is, as Jeff would say, woke theology is getting you nowhere.
Right. That's another area where they're being stupid. I mean, this whole critical race theory, woke theology, the polls have already shown that nobody is into that stuff. They don't want to talk in the classrooms.
That's what happens.
Pushing it.
That's what happens when you put millennials in charge of your political strategy. They don't know what the hell is going on. And they're the ones that are, don't you know that a millennial, you read Joe Biden's Twitter timeline and you know that that's a millennial on that timeline. Joe Biden don't know about woke culture. He don't know nothing about pronouns and all that crap. Give me a break. He has never heard of such a thing. It is millennial, and that is why they overplayed their hand, because they put all this in the hands of millennials. That's why the White House seems like it's in chaos, because it's millennials running it, and the millennials have no idea in hell what real life is like in the rest of the United States. So all of this policy that doesn't make sense to you, all of these choices that doesn't make sense to you, these are choices that are being made by millennial staffers who have spent their entire lives on social media and who think that Twitter is a representative cross section of the American people. And now they're finding out, oh no, actually Americans don't like this stuff. And now Jen Psaki has to try to convince us that it's the Republicans who really want to defund police.
Yet another example.
The only thing I would say about Jen is Peppermint Patty calls. She wants her and her life.
Oh, God.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness.
Summer of shade here at Red and Black. Good gracious. Can we get to a happy story before we go?
Let's get to a happy story.
All right. So, talking about things that all Americans can't get behind, but apparently let's talk about one story that all Americans can get behind, and that's freeing Britney. So let's go to our legal analyst, Dr. Metzler. Britney's been getting some good news in the courts. Apparently her dad is off the conservatorship. Let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, and I think it's probably because they heard what we said here on Red and Black. So she has a new lawyer, an excellent lawyer, by the way, and things are looking up for the freedom of Britney. I mean, look, it's time to free her. I mean, she didn't come over in the slave ship, but she still should be freed.
There you go. I mean, what can you say about that? Well, Matt Gaetz was in town today. Matt Gaetz was in LA at the Free Britney rally. I mean, this is like the craziest thing.
That is so weird. That is so weird.
Weird.
It is.
I don't disagree with it, but it's just weird.
It's very bizarre. But I think one of the bizarre things is like how united people are around this, and I think that's a real testament to her bravery for that testimony. That's really what turned it around, because it's easy to paint a rich celebrity as insane or whatever, but to hear, and she really didn't use her own voice for so long. So to hear her say those words, I think really moved a lot of people, and even people who are like, well, what do I care about celebrity lives? Okay, I don't, but also I don't think a woman, a grown 40-year-old woman should be able to decide if she wants to get married and have babies. Like, is this not America? And so in that respect, this is a cultural touchstone in a way, and so it might feel silly that we're all talking about it, but it does have relevance to what our rights are. And one of the things I always say, we all always say this on this show, we all believe this very much, is that we have the freedom to make our own decisions in this country, and one of the downsides of freedom is that sometimes you might make decisions that are bad. They're bad for you, they're bad for your family, and maybe Britney does not have the capacity to make the greatest decisions, but she does have the right to make the decisions for herself. And so I feel for this woman. I truly do. She deserves her independence. And I don't expect her to come out of this being like this fully responsible, amazing human being. She's got a lot of trauma that she'll have to work through for the rest of her life. But as a woman and as a mother myself, I absolutely think that what has happened to her is a pathetic and horrific tragedy. We should all be ashamed that we ever blamed her for, any of her problems. And we should be shaming her parents and her family and the people who have kept her a basic prisoner for the last 10 years.
Well, we got to go, but I got one piece of good news with you. I just got off the phone, and although Larry Elder does not have a position on AB5, sorry, Kira, he will be putting on his website a platform position on Free Britney. So we at least got that covered for you. We'll be good. Is that going to be good enough to convince you to? I guess not. Anyhow, Kira, we got to get out of here real quick. Ending the show, tell us real quick about you being in Cleveland, you doing Just Listen to Yourself, you doing all the 5,000 different things that you do, but do it quickly.
Yeah, I'll be in Cleveland next week, July 24th at the Go Cafe. It's my first live show. Tickets available at Eventbrite. Just look up Just Listen to Yourself. Get a ticket. And even if you can't come, if you know someone in the area, buy them a ticket and tell them to come over. We're going to talk about some of the touchy subjects that I can't do on the radio for fear of getting banned. So if you've always want to have that honest conversation that I'm talking about, then join us there. And you guys, guess what? At the time that this episode drops, I will have dropped my 100th episode of Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis. 100 episodes in. Very proud of myself. Thank you to all of the listeners, and thank you to you guys for all your support. Of course, you can find Just Listen to Yourself wherever you find your podcasts.
Kira, I would tell you to pop your collar, but you're not wearing a collar today. Jeff, you are wearing a collar. Real quick, what are you up to this week?
Yes, I've started doing interviews again. So I did one yesterday with Keisha King, who went viral when she confronted her school board in Florida about critical race theory. Great interview with the lovely Keisha King. And then I've got some more coming up. I'm going to be talking about the Voting Rights or the Corrupt Politicians Act, as well as some other stuff that's coming down the pike. Also, I will be at the Solutionary Summit. And I'll be on one of the panels there on the media that's coming up in early September. So I will keep you guys updated.
I'll be there with you, Jeff. I'll be there with you.
What's the name of your show, Jeff? Promotion.
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry. On my show, which is called A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles on YouTube or on any podcast app, wherever you get your podcasts.
Why do I gotta help him promote his own stuff? What the heck's wrong?
He's learning. Just be nice. He's learning.
I guess. Dr.
It's so famous that everybody knows about it anyway. So
yeah. You and Eric Clapton are going to change the world again this week. What are you doing? What are you up to this week?
As Jeff with we have lifestyle platform, living life beyond the realm. You can find. We started filming yesterday for one of our first pieces, so join us on Instagram and live your life beyond the realm.
Live your life beyond the realm. That sounds fantastic. Congratulations on that new endeavor. We will be following you on that. We want to continue to get updates on that. Follow Kira. If you're in the Cleveland area, first of all, my apologies. I say that as a Pittsburgher. I'm only kidding. If you're in the area, you gotta go to the show. She wants to see you there. I'm sure she's gonna do a great job. Make sure you're catching A Fresh Perspective. You catch up to Dr. Metzler's new endeavor, and of course, you can find me pretty much anywhere here on Red and Black. In the meanwhile, enjoy your weekend. Share the episode. If you haven't had a chance to catch some of the past episodes, find them, catch them. We'll make you laugh. We'll make you think. And of course, will bring us together as Americans. In the meanwhile, enjoy the rest of your day. We look forward to catching you soon. TCNGB, take care and God bless. Peace.